Every single day, we move through a world that's shaped by systems we barely even notice. When you swipe a key card to get into your office, or you walk through a gate at the airport, you're interacting with this hidden architecture. So today, we're going to dive deep into electronic access control. It's the technology that is quietly and constantly deciding who gets in and who stays out. So why does any of this really matter? Well, to get to the heart of it, we have to start with this really sobering dedication from our source material. It's talking about a terrifying event back on September 1st, 2010, when a gunman took 3 people hostage at the Discovery Channel headquarters. All of a sudden, this isn't about convenience or losing your keys. It's about technology that has literally life or death stakes. And that right there, that's the core challenge, isn't it? We all want to be safe, but we also need to live and work in a society that feels open and functional. So how do you protect people without making them feel like they're in a prison? That is the fundamental question that every single access control system is trying to answer. So let's start with the real-world stakes, because this is about so much more than just a locked door. It's about managing incredibly complex threats in a world that, it never stands still. So here are the basic facts of that day. A man named James J. Lee, armed and claiming he had explosives, held 3 people hostage. And for hours, the situation was unbelievably tense. But that building had over 1,000 employees in it. An effective security system was absolutely crucial in containing that threat, preventing what could have been a much, much larger tragedy, and really buying law enforcement the critical time they needed to resolve the crisis. Now, you might think the goal is perfect, impenetrable security, right? But the reality is actually way more nuanced. The very best systems out there are built on a fascinating and totally necessary compromise. This is such a crucial point from our source. A perfectly secure building is just a sealed box. Nobody gets in. But that's a vault, not an office. The real insight here is that the safest building isn't necessarily the most secure one. It's the one that best manages its vulnerabilities. So access control is what they call a calculated concession. It's a system designed to let the right people in to do their jobs while constantly managing the risks. It's this constant balancing act between security and just, getting work done. So how do designers actually strike that balance? Well, they think in terms of risk. As you can see here, an event like, say, a coworker losing their key card, that's a high probability event. It happens all the time, right? But the consequence is pretty low. It's a minor risk. But an event like a terrorist attack, the probability is incredibly low, but the consequences are catastrophic. That creates a very high risk that has to be managed. And that's the kind of thinking that shapes every single one of these systems. Okay, so we get the why. Now let's get into the how. What are the fundamental pieces that actually make these systems work? I absolutely love this quote because it just brilliantly illustrates the most basic principle of all. You can have the most advanced high-tech card readers on the planet, but if they aren't attached to a solid wall and a strong door, you have nothing. The electronics are the brain, sure, but the physical barriers, the walls, the fences, the doors, they're the body. Every time you swipe a card, this little 4-step dance happens in a split second. First, you present your credential, which is really just a card holding a unique number. The reader passes that number to a control panel. The panel checks its database and asks, is this card valid for this specific door at this exact time? If the answer is yes, boom, it sends a signal to unlock the door. And finally, it logs the whole thing. Simple, but incredibly powerful. Now, we've talked a lot about keeping threats out, but there's one rule, one single principle that overrides everything else. It is more important than any other security measure. The number one priority is always life safety. Always. Fire authorities are absolutely insistent on this. It doesn't matter how secure a door is from the outside, people on the inside must be able to get out in an emergency. It's for people escaping, and it's for firefighters getting in. This rule is completely non-negotiable. And the author of our source text, he learned this lesson the hard way. He tells a story about being trapped inside a high-rise office building after hours. The doors were locked from both sides. He was stuck for 5 hours until a passing police officer and a building engineer finally managed to get him out. It's a lesson, he says, that he will never, ever forget. Okay, now let's look at what makes these systems truly powerful. It isn't just about one door and one reader anymore. The real strength, the real magic, comes from making different systems work together as one single, intelligent unit. This is the key to modern security design. The technology exists. We have the tools. What makes it effective is imagination. The ability to ask, what if? And then creatively combine different tools like alarms, cameras, and intercoms to create a response that is way more than the sum of its parts. You can see the difference right here on this slide. In a siloed system, the alarm goes off and that's it. Someone has to manually check the video, then maybe manually activate a PA system. But in an integrated system, one event triggers a whole cascade. An alarm automatically brings up the right camera, which gives an operator the intel to make a targeted announcement over a loudspeaker. All of that happens in just seconds. And this timeline shows you exactly how that works in the real world. A convenience store robbery is in progress. The cashier hits a silent alarm. Instantly, a remote operator is seeing and hearing everything. Before the robber even knows what's happening, a voice from the ceiling is describing him, telling him he's being recorded, and that police are on the way. The element of surprise is completely flipped, and the source notes that the robber often just flees without hurting anyone. It de-escalates a dangerous situation. That is the power of integration. All right, finally, let's pull back the curtain on this constant, unseen battle that's always driving this technology forward. Because for every security measure, you can bet there's someone out there trying to defeat it. This is a perfect example of that arms race. Criminals develop something called a frame spreader. It's basically a hydraulic jack that just bends a steel door frame until the lock pops out. So the industry's response? Multi-point deadbolts. This kind of hardware doesn't just lock in the middle, it shoots bolts into the frame at the top, at the bottom, and on the sides, making that kind of brute force attack pretty much impossible. It is a constant game of cat and mouse. So the big takeaway here is this. We are surrounded by these complex, really thoughtful systems designed to balance our freedom and our safety. They're the product of decades of experience, technological evolution, and a deep understanding of human behavior. So the next time you swipe a card, just take a moment, consider the invisible architecture that's all around you, and ask yourself, what else have I been missing?